Okay, I think we're in pretty good shape on the balance sheet, at least for right now. What I'd like to do is go over and look at our income statement. So I think sales at this point are pretty well taken care of. COGS, and then gross profit is just a function of that. We'll delete that. The one thing we're missing right now, or the three things we need to deal with on the income statement, are the operating expenses, interest expense, and interest income. At this point, I want to deal with the operating expenses. The main thing that's going to be impacted here is, you might remember from the case, they talked a little bit about how storage and handling costs were going to increase $300,000. And so what we'll decide to do here is we're just have to allocate those costs somehow. So I'm going to give you a way that we can do that. So let's go back to, why don't I just move this next to Exhibit 1, because essentially these are what are becoming relevant right now. So I'll go back to Exhibit 1 where I redid my inventory. Now what I want to say is, let's go ahead and figure out our total cumulative inventory. It's kind of a meaningless number, except it's going to help us allocate our costs. So here's what I want to say. So remember, what's going to drive this storage and handling cost is the amount of inventory that's in each month. So that'll become a basis for how we allocate it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually say equals, and I'm going to say sum, and then I'm going to reference this row right here. Okay? So I have about 47 million in cumulative inventory. Again, it doesn't mean that much, except it's going to help us come up with a proportion. So now what I want to do is I'm going to say, look, what proportion of the total cumulative inventory is 1.7 million? So I'll say equals, and then I'll reference 1.7 million, and then divide it by my total cumulative inventory. In other words, how much was this as a proportion of the total inventory handled for the period, shall we say, or for the year? So, and then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make this, I'm going to put dollar signs in front of it because I'm going to want to copy this across and keep referencing that 47 million. I'll enter that. Then what I'll do is I will make this a percentage, shall we say. You don't have to do that, but it just might look a little cleaner that way. And then I'm just going to copy that across. And now I have a percentage. So now why do I want to use this? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take that 300,000 that we had, which was the storage and handling cost, and I'm going to allocate it back to the inventory based on these percentages, figuring that, look, I had a lot more storage and handling costs in, say, July than I had in January. So now what I'll do is I'll say 3.6, and I'll multiply that by the 300,000. And so maybe I'll get like, if I were to say dollar amount here, we'll just, to be consistent, since we're not using dollars, we'll just use something like that. So maybe about $11,000 was my storage cost there. Let's also, because I want to re-reference this 300,000, I will put dollar signs in front of 0 and 44. And now what I can do when I go across there is I can get my costs. So now I have the various amounts. So I have about 11 million there. Notice that July is up to 37.7, about triple, but that's because this inventory amount is about triple that amount. Now the last step is, remember, this is an expense, and let's just double check. We'll just do this for kind of make sure we got everything allocated right. I'll just do another sum on this and make sure that this adds up to 300,000. It'll tell me that I got it totally allocated, and I did. So now what I want to do is I'm going to go to Exhibit 2, and now what I want is I want, you know what we might even do here too is I will, let's see, we had an equal amount here. So perhaps what we can do is we'll take this and add it to, so we'll reference the storage and handling for January, enter, and notice at one time this was 360, but now what we want to do is we'll make this was originally 360 in each period. So then I'll go back to the 360 that it was, and then I'll reference the amount that was right there. So I have 375, and now what I can do is I will just go across there, and now I end up with 4620 as my total operating expense for the year. Let's just do a sanity check. We'll go back to Exhibit 2. This was 4320. It's now 4620. So you can see that we've had an increase of 300,000, which is tied to our storage and handling. So at this point, I think we're good. The nice thing is that this income statement is referencing everything. So the profits recalculating, the profit before loss, the net income, the taxes. And by the way, now that we've linked our retained earnings and our accrued taxes to this, that'll be recalculating as well. So we're in good shape. At this point, I'm going to stop, and we'll come back and deal with the interest expense and interest income in a second. Thank you.